Okay, I'm coming down on top of that last video that I made a few days ago about, I kind of blew your minds maybe about the sons of God being given the territories of the earth. And, that means that those sons of God who rebelled in Genesis 6 are now in Deuteronomy 32. We see 32:8 that God has said, I've given the territories. When I divided up the peoples, I gave territories. I divided them up according to the number of the sons of God, which that's the sons of God who rebelled in Genesis 6, as I said, and that was Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel, when he divided up the peoples, when he separated the peoples. Okay, and then I said that then in Genesis 12, the very next chapter, he makes Abraham his people and says, you're going to have the land of Israel. And he lays out the landmarks that he's giving, the boundaries of Israel. Pretty fascinating. So, and when I talked about how, well, if God gave the territories of the earth because they rebelled in Genesis 12, right? They already rebelled after the flood, started worshiping other gods, and he said, okay, if that's the way you feel about it, I'll give those other gods to you. They've now got charge over those all the territories of the earth. I'm going to, separate the boundaries of the peoples according to these sons of God, these rebels, and have at it. That sounds, to some people, oh, God would never do that. Well, then you have Jesus coming on the scene saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. And you have Satan coming to Jesus in the temptation saying, hey, if you will worship me, I'll give you all the territories. So, I'm theorizing, don't know that this is truth, but that Satan, the other rebellious son of God, was somehow made the leader over all these rebels. And he had the authority to give, the territories. Now, so I know this is no different, really. I'm just using different terminology. This is no different than what we know from Ephesians 6:12 that says, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers. Principalities, I've just discovered, means the area that a prince is over. A principality, municipality is a city. Anyway, we wrestle against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. This is also no different than we saw in Daniel 10. We'll read verse 12 and 13. The angel said to me, do not fear, Daniel. From the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard, and I've come because of your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. And behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, here we got princes again, as in principalities, the opposite on the other side, the side of evil, we've got principalities and powers. But Michael, one of the chief princes, that's the rank of God's angels that haven't rebelled. Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left alone there with the king. It says kings of Persia. We all accept this as being real, that this warfare that's going on in the heavenlies. Well, I'm just presenting this with different words and giving you kind of the historical background the way I see it now. The gods, the sons of God who rebelled, the sons of God who came before the throne in Job 1, these were angelic beings of some sort. They're not the messenger types, they're the other types. There's lots of different types of angels, spirits, Hebrews 1. Anyway, we've gone over that. But I wanted to make a correction on the last video I made. I said that the Masoretic text was the one that began translating that Deuteronomy 32:8 instead of sons of God as sons of Israel, that God divided the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the sons of Israel. Well, that Masoretic text was begun in the 6th century A.D. Babylonian Jews, they were living in Babylon, they were Jewish scholars. They translated the Hebrew scriptures that we now get our English translations from. That's the authorized version, is this Masoretic text that was translated by Jews in Babylon in the 6th century A.D., completed in the 10th century A.D. So this is a really late translation. So you know how we tend to think the latest is the greatest in everything we do. But anyway, that's that. So I wanted to correct that. And now I want to read, just before, this is going to be not long, I'm going to read a couple of interesting passages once we consider that the sons of God, these fallen angels, were given territories. I'm going to give you, wait a minute, we have to fight for territory. Okay, and we talked about yesterday, the last time, about why we have to fight for territory, right? So there's an interesting couple of passages about this whole concept of territories being under these rebellious angels. David, this is interesting, and when he was running from Saul, and this is in 1 Samuel 26, 17, 19, this conversation he has with Saul is very interesting. Oh, what did I say, 17? So he's having a conversation with Saul while Saul is chasing him. And, let's see, which one was this? This is where David got so close to Saul, he took his sword or something. I can't remember what happened anyway. We'll have to go back. But starting with verse 17, then Saul knew David's voice. Now this is at a distance. They're having this conversation, right? And he said, is that your voice, my son David? And David said, it is my voice, my lord, O king. And David said, why does my lord thus pursue his servant? For what have I done? What evil is in my hand? Now therefore, please let my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, then let him accept an offering. But if it is the children of men, may they be cursed before the Lord. He's saying, who has stirred you up against me? Is it the Lord, or is it the children of men? Is it men? He says, if it's men, may they be cursed before the Lord, for they have driven me out this day from sharing in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, go serve other gods. What did he mean by this? They have driven me out this day from sharing in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, go serve other gods. Now he was about to flee from Judah and go down to the area of the Philistines and hide down there, because he said, in fact, it's the very next chapter. He says, David says in his heart, now I shall perish someday by the hand of Saul. There's nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines. And Saul will despair of me to seek me any more in any part of Israel. So I shall escape out of his hand. So then he went down with 600 men to Achish, the king of Gath, which is where, remember, the remnant of the giants ended up mostly in Gath and Ashdod, in this area where the Philistines were. Anyway, so David is saying to Saul, I can't be in the land of the Lord's inheritance if you keep pursuing me. I'm going to have to leave. And that means, in verse 19 of this chapter we're in, 1 Samuel 26, that means that to be driven out from sharing in the inheritance of the Lord, he's going to be serving other gods. Territory, different gods. Do you see that? The inheritance of the Lord, in Deuteronomy 32:8, which we looked at, it says, but my inheritance, the Lord's portion is Jacob. Let's read it because I'm not quoting it just exactly right. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the place of his inheritance. So David was saying, why are you going to drive me out from being able to share in the inheritance of the Lord and serve other gods? So David had in his mind the fact that once he left Judah, he was in the territory of other gods. Okay? Now I want to read another interesting one. This is the episode of Naaman, the leper, whom Elijah healed, having to go back into Syria to serve his master again, and he wanted to take some dirt with him from where he was with Elijah. So here we go. This is Elisha, I'm sorry. 2 Kings 5:15-9. So Naaman, after he gets healed in the waters of Jordan, remember the leper, Naaman the commander of the Syrian army, he returned to the man of God, he and all his aides, and he came and stood before him, talking about Elisha, and said, "Indeed, now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now therefore, please take a gift from your servant." But he said, meaning Elijah said, "As the Lord lives before whom I stand, I'll receive nothing." And Naaman urged him to take it, but he refused. So Naaman said, "Then if not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth. For your servant will no longer offer either burnt offerings or sacrifice to other gods, but to the Lord. Yet in this thing may the Lord pardon your servant. When my master goes into the temple of Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, I bow down in the temple of Rimmon. Then I will bow down. When I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord please pardon your servant in this thing." And so Elisha says, "Go in peace." So why did he want to take earth from, I forgot where they were, Dothan maybe, I can't remember the place in Israel where they were. I believe it was up in the north in Dothan. But anyway, why did this Naaman, this Syrian commander of the army, of Syrian army, want to take earth back? I believe it has to do with this territorial thing that they believed, and which we understand is true if we understand this passage in Deuteronomy 32:8, according to the oldest manuscript. He was living in the territory of other gods, and he wanted to take some earth back from Israel. So maybe he wanted to stand on that earth when he worshipped Yahweh, the Lord who had healed him. I don't know, but that's interesting, isn't it? So, yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to bring today. Again, this does not contradict with what we already know from Ephesians 6:12. Our battle's not against flesh and blood, but against rulers and powers in the heavenly places. So, who have been given some kind of authority. Else how could Satan have offered the earth to Christ? Now we know he never really had it. God has always had authority anytime he wanted to do it. But there was this, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a sense in which God said, okay, you want other gods? Have at it. Knowing what his plan is, his plan was that all authority would be given to Christ. And as we know, Psalm 2, all authority is given to the Anointed One, which includes us. We're included in the Anointed One. We own all the nations. Just don't see it yet. So anyway, there's that. That kind of winds up what I'm wanting to talk to you about these the sons of God. So we'll continue on. I've got some more stuff I want to share with you. Love y'all. Have a great day, a blessed day.